Peace and welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Folks, we got a lot to talk about. First and foremost, let's give you an update on a historic meeting that's happening in Washington today, where 5 state speakers will be meeting with representatives from the White House about creating a common policy agenda and what that means for Black America. We'll have that conversation. Also, the Supreme Court is looking to review the big case around whether canceling student debt is legal by the Biden administration. That case goes up for review tomorrow. We'll talk about the implications of that. And then later we check with Brother Michael to talk about everything from Japanese American support of reparations and so much more. Stay with us. It's all happening on today's edition of The Culture on the Black Star Network. Let's go. Folks, welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in. Folks, let's jump right into it as we have some big conversations. First, want to give you a quick tidbit about an upcoming meeting that the White House has scheduled for 5 Black speakers of state legislatures. Folks, this is a big meeting, and we're seeing a lot of it. We're seeing some movement about some of the issues that are concerned Black America. First and foremost, let me just share with you what this meeting is all about. Take a look at this, folks. This is coming out of the White House, and this was reported earlier today that Julie Chavez Rodriguez, who serves as the director of White House Office of Intergovernmental Affairs and Domestic Policy Advisor Susan Rice, will welcome Speaker Chris Welch of Illinois, Speaker Rachel Talbot Ross of Maine, Speaker Adrian Jones of Maryland, Speaker Joe Tate of Michigan, and Speaker Carl Heastie of New York. Now, according to the White House, these officials and the state speakers will discuss common policy priorities such as economic security, healthcare, and housing, gun violence prevention, and criminal justice reform, plus voting rights and reproductive rights. Let's check in now with Dr. Jason Nichols, who serves as a lecturer for the Department of African American Studies at the University of Maryland, to give us some insight as to what should we expect from this meeting. Brother Jason, it's always good to have you on. Thank you so much, bro. Oh, you got you on mute, big brother.
Oh,
there we go.
I'm on mute.
There, okay. Now you're not. Okay, good to talk to you again. Talk to us a little bit about this situation, this meeting that the White House wants to have with these 5 speakers, Black speakers, historic speakers from these 5 different states.
Well, I think it's twofold. I think one, the administration wants to get a little pat on the back. They want for these secretaries of state, these speakers, I apologize, these speakers to talk about what they've already accomplished legislatively, the COVID relief, the Inflation Reduction Act, the CHIPS Act, Science Act, and say how those things have been good for Black America. So I think that they actually want a little bit of a pat on the back, but then I think they want to talk. Hopefully these speakers have gotten an opportunity to huddle up before they actually go into the meeting and can actually present a united front and develop an agenda even before they get to the White House to discuss this with the administration and talk about what it is that concerns Black communities in all of these different states, and not just urban areas, but also rural areas. We know there are rural Black folks, certainly in Michigan. There are rural Black folks in Maryland. And there are certainly urban Black folks in Detroit and Baltimore and places like that. So I think that there's going to be some ceremonial part of this where it's like, hey, Mr. President, thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for supporting diversity within the party. And this is a historic moment during Black History Month. I think that won't be lost on anybody. So they got it in at the last minute on Black History Month to show what the progress that the party is making. But at the same time, I think that these speakers will go forward and say, hey, there are things that need to be worked on, and we're going to need your support for our constituents.
But none of these issues seem to be specifically relevant to Black folks in the normal sense, like reproductive rights. That's a big conversation. I mean, all of these things are big ticket items for all of America, not just for Black America. Is there? And I'm wondering the strategy in terms of from the White House and even from the speakers to accept the meeting and have these conversations about how to be on the same page with one another. It's like these are, since they are like cross the board type of issues, what should our expectation be coming out of this meeting?
Well, I think there are across the board issues, but some of them disproportionately affect us, like voting rights, like that disproportionately affects Black Americans more than others. I think, again, I understand that this administration is also one of those administrations that talks about, kind of a rising tide lifts all boats. I mean, that was the message that Vice President Harris kind of put out there when she said that she wasn't going to do anything specifically for Black folks, that was just going to benefit Black folks, that I think upset a lot of people. So that's been the approach of this administration.
Yeah.
You still have to talk about, how it impacts, because these are the speakers for the state. You know what I mean? They are going to talk about things that affect their entire states.
Right.
But some of these things that are on the agenda affect Black people disproportionately. Like, one of the things that they're going to talk about, which again is going to be kind of a pat on the back thing, is our Republican governor or former Republican governor blocked a lot of the transportation efforts to connect East Baltimore to West Baltimore and to update a lot of the freeways. And that affected a lot of Black folks, getting from one side of the city to another. How are you going to do that? And that also, affects employment and a lot of other things. So I think there's going to be, there's federal funding going towards that out of the infrastructure projects. I think they're going to get a little pat on the back. Ms. Jones, Speaker Jones, is going to say, hey, thank you for what you guys have been doing to remind, the backbone of the Democratic Party, which is Black folks, that they are keeping them in mind and they are working for them. But at the same time, some of these issues affect Black people more. And I would say almost every issue, whether you're talking about education, infrastructure, healthcare, that's always going to be, the concern of Black folks. And knowing that we have Black speakers in there advocating not only for their states, but also have a special eye on Black communities gives, I think, a slight amount of comfort, knowing that our communities are going to be thought of, because these are the communities that these people come out of.
All right, let me get some thoughts here, Brother Jason, from our crew, because folks may not, one, have known about this meeting, and two, it is an interesting approach and an interesting, strategy. My other thought is that because you have these Black state speakers, is this the beginning of a plan, you think, from the Democratic Party to approach these big issues from a grassroots states level instead of taking it from President Biden, coming across his pulpit? Now they're like, okay, we need to go on the state level, because that's what seems to be the strategy for the Republican Party. Hit the states. Don't worry about the big speaker at the top of the hill.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's been very effective. When we talk about the attack on voting rights, it has been from the state level, these state legislatures. So in states where you have a Democratic presence and certainly a Democratic majority, you need to take advantage of that. You need to put money into state level races. Make sure that you win some of these races. And this is one of the reasons why Michigan has been so important, and why I've been saying that I think Gretchen Whitmer is going to perhaps surpass Vice President Harris as kind of the heir apparent to the party, is because she is, under her leadership, they have taken a battleground state and made it completely blue. including the legislature. So you don't get those ridiculous election, quote unquote, election integrity laws that are basically just ways to block black voters and younger voters from voting.
Yeah.
In Michigan, because of the way that they've organized and the way that they put focus into those kinds of elections. So I think nationwide, that needs to be the strategy moving forward. Like, get some of those seats in some of these states where you have a large black population, a younger population, a Latino population, and try to win as much as you can, because Republicans, when they get control, they're going to gerrymander those districts. Yep. We saw what happened in Florida, where they gerrymandered the only black district in North Florida out of existence. They're going to do all of that. So this state level approach is incredibly important. You can't just think that, and I would say even going even deeper into local politics and talking about your school board. Yeah. You don't want books banned. You don't want books on Roberto Clemente to be banned, because they mentioned race and racism. Go in there and have people running for school board and have, put a little money into it and have a big turnout so that you get the right people on the school board. These are the kinds of things that we need.
Absolutely. Folks, we're going to take Doc, we're going to take a quick pause. When we come forward, we're going to continue the conversation for a few more minutes because I'm wondering if there's going to be, as they employ this new strategy, the overall impact that it will have on black voters. So, folks, stay with us. We're continuing the conversation with Dr. Jason Nichols as we talk about the White House meeting with black state speakers. You're tuned into The Culture right here on the Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, you're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Folks, welcome back to the show. We've been talking to my brother, Dr. Jason Nichols of the University of Maryland in the African American Studies Department, as we talk about how the White House is officially has met earlier today with state speakers from black state speakers from five states from around the country, as in an effort to create some common policies on a number of issues, including reproductive rights, gun violence prevention, voting, and so much more. So I wanted to just take a few minutes, and I want to bring Dr. Jason Nichols back into the frame here as we look at this to get a couple of thoughts from our crew. But, one of the big things that I wanted to, that I didn't see on the agenda, and maybe they just didn't put it out there for political reasons, that this could possibly, maybe, Brother Jason, be a little bit of a planning session preparing for 2024.
I definitely
trying to test the waters to see what the temperature is like right now in these 5 states where you have these black speakers and seeing, okay, is your state amenable to Joe Biden, or we need to look at somebody else? I mean, that has to come up in a conversation somewhere, since we're a little bit over like a year and a half away from that big moment. So what you think, bro?
Yeah, I don't know if I would say that it was explicitly stated, but I definitely think that, there was the air of 2024 all around, and understanding that they were going to need a lot of this infrastructure that they built up in these states to help them win. Now, again, they're going to win Maryland, regardless. If you lose Maryland as a Democrat, you're in big trouble. You probably lost every state.
Not only you're in big trouble, you almost have to be like, bro, you have no chance.
Yeah, you're DOA.
You might as well stop the campaign, right?
Yeah, you might as well just call your opponent and be like, thanks.
Right.
But I would say, states like Michigan, that's a battleground state. You know what I mean? And it's going to be really important. There are no guarantees, even though it looks really strong right now. There are no guarantees that you're going to win Michigan in 2024. So you need to tout your accomplishments. You need to bring Michigan into the focus and let people know that, hey, this is what we did for Michigan infrastructure. This is what we did for manufacturing. This is how we're helping the unions. And you bring a Michigan official to the White House and have that conversation and take some photos. And they take those photos with them and say, hey, we're supporters of Joe Biden. We endorse Joe Biden in 2024. I think that's going to be really, really important. And the same thing, if Kamala Harris is the heir apparent, she wants to be, kind of in the mix of that as well. So I think it's important, definitely for 2024, for them to be laying the groundwork, particularly with Black communities.
Yeah.
And it is Black History Month, but you definitely want to start laying that groundwork because this election cycle is already starting. I mean, we know Trump declared a while ago, but now you're getting other candidates who are declaring.
Yeah, and Trump is not the big figure right now, it seems like that.
Right. And they're all attacking Joe Biden. They're all afraid to talk about Trump, which is why Trump's going to win, by the way, amongst the Republicans in the GOP, is because they're acting like he's the big bad bully schoolyard and they're whispering his name. If you're going to do that, then you're pretty much making it. He's calling y'all out, but y'all not calling him out. One of my favorite lines from Jay-Z, where he was talking about subliminal disses, he was like, if it ain't directed directly at me, I don't respect it. You know what I mean? So for me, I think a lot of what we're seeing on the Republican side, they're going after Joe Biden. Joe Biden needs to build, a team around him from around the country, particularly in these battleground states, to protect him from some of those criticisms that you're going to get from the Republicans, because they're scared to fight each other.
All right, my guy Willie Fraser checked in and is kicking us off this afternoon. He said it seems like an effort to put Black men in focus before this next election. From the barbershop, there's a lot of work that those in office and the citizens need to do. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think that to Willie's point, this is a way for the administration to tap in, to try to figure out, okay, where we are and with everything and on all of this stuff. And of course, I mean, and it sucks because I would have not done this meeting during this month. I would have waited just a few more days, and it could just simply because that's when the president's, that's when people are available. But you know what I mean? Because what it comes across as, oh, it's Black History Month. Let's meet with Black leaders.
Well, I think there's some of that, but I also think it is, I just got back from Ukraine. I want people to know that I'm still focused on the United States of America. So him meeting with leaders and, of course, mixing in Black History Month as well. But I think there was that whisper or that criticism that he's more concerned with international affairs. He's more concerned about Ukraine and the American people. And he's going, to meet with his supporters. He wants it to be a friendly meeting. And he wants it to be here in the United States because he doesn't want, to Willie Frazier's point, he doesn't want Black folks in the barbershop to be like, look, he's getting off, Marine One and Air Force One, and he's over there in a war zone, but he don't come to Chicago. He don't come to Detroit. He don't come to Baltimore. You don't want that to start up.
Right.
The barbershop. You want them to know, hey, I'm meeting with people from your state. I'm meeting with the leader that you voted for, that you put into office. That person that you saw, at the campaign event or knocked on your door or actually walked in the barbershop, had a conversation with you. I'm meeting with that person. And I think that is kind of the strategy. But, I think Black History Month was definitely, a consideration. But I think it's more than just Black History Month. It's because he knows the criticisms, or they know the criticisms that they were giving Joe Biden, that he wasn't focused on the United States. He didn't go to East Palestine. And you remember the people in East Palestine, or at least, people like J.D. Vance are saying, those are our people. So I think Joe Biden was like, I want to meet with people domestically, but I'm going to meet with my people.
Right.
My people who support me. And I'm going to have a friendly meeting. I'm not going to go, somewhere where it could be hostile.
Yeah, absolutely. Truth is power, my guy. You said it once again. We wouldn't be in this situation if we got out and vote numbers, and vote out numbers. We shouldn't be preparing for 2024. We should be ready for 2024. I don't know. A truth is power, my guy. I agree with you in the sense of, we didn't that we wouldn't be in a situation if things were addressed sooner. But I'm going to go back to my view of this, brother Jason, that people come out and vote. But it's Black folks come out and vote. We vote in big numbers. We vote all the time. And I mean, that's not our problem. That really isn't our problem. I don't know if folks need to take a look at some of the voting numbers in terms of go to your respective states or your counties or districts. We come out to vote. Here's the problem. I don't think we should be beating up on Black voters. Black voters take a hit all the time because 9 out of 10 times the candidate that we want don't win. So I don't think it's about beating up on Black voters per se. And I'm not saying you're doing that, truth is power, but I'm just saying the spotlight shouldn't be on Black voters. The spotlight needs to be on these candidates, these agendas that they're not speaking to our interests, right? So what is speaking to our interests? Who is going to present an agenda that's going to speak to our interests to get us excited to come out and vote? If we go back to Barack Obama, again, his agenda spoke to our interests, change, hope. I mean, it spoke to us. It resonated with us. And the reason it resonated with us, because that's what we needed. But just talking policy, there was a little bit of psychology and some spiritual, kind of things going on with Barack Obama that we just haven't seen with other candidates. They just come up to us with these issues versus coming to us with, hey, let's be a part of a movement instead of just getting out to vote. Does that make sense, bro?
Yeah. I hear what you're saying. I think if we're expecting another Barack Obama, you're going to be waiting a long time. Barack Obama was a once in a lifetime kind of candidate. You know what I mean? I've never seen anybody like Barack Obama before. I haven't seen one since. As far as Black voters, Democrats have been saved in every election and midterm since 2018 by Black folks. Now, what we need to do, I would say Democrats need to do anyway, is to, first of all, start pointing the finger at white women who are voting against their interests oftentimes, particularly if you're talking about reproductive issues and things like that. And we also, and I know some black folks don't agree with me, but I think that Democrats do need to start making overtures to white working class voters, to rural people. That's what Joe Biden was able to do in places like Pennsylvania. He was like, I'm from Scranton. I'm that working class white guy. You saw a little bit of it in Ohio with Tim Ryan and a little bit of it in Pennsylvania with Fetterman, even though he's really not a working class guy. But he was able to kind of talk the talk and dress the dress and all of that. And we need more of that so that the burden isn't always on black folks' shoulders. And we need those working class white folks to also understand that their interests are aligned and tied to black folks. So don't think, that we're this separate kind of thing and we have all these differences when it's working class black folks and working class white folks. We need to build that kind of coalition, but the Democrats need to not take them for granted. Stop trying to use the Obama map, because no one is Obama. That was the problem with Hillary Clinton. She was like, well, I'll just do what Obama did. And it's like, you both eat hot sauce, but that's it. You have nothing else in common. You got to try a different strategy.
Absolutely. And I know Truth is Power made the point. Sharon Beasley lost by slim margin. Val Demings lost. Mandela Barnes, Cory Booker. He said, why? Because we did not vote. Let's do the numbers. Would you like them? I'm not saying that they didn't lose, but again, you got to see what did they offer to those black voters in those specific areas. And if those voters felt like their interests were being met with each one of these candidates. But let me just tell you, like in Baltimore, we have over 65% of black city. So if you vote, if you have a candidate, they're going to have to appeal to black Baltimore because that's the majority. But in some cases, that's not the case. That's not the case. And I mean, the numbers don't always work out that if every single, that vast majority of black registered voters come out, that they're going to naturally win. It doesn't always work out like that. We got like 30 seconds. Go ahead, Doc.
Let me just make one point, and that is, if we look at the numbers, about 15% of Florida is black. So if every single black voter, and we know that there were efforts to keep like the formerly incarcerated from voting and others who could sway elections, but if every single black voter in Florida voted for Val Demings, she still wouldn't have been close. And I wouldn't blame those losses on black folks. I think black folks got out and voted in large numbers. You could make an argument maybe about Wisconsin because of the voter suppression efforts. But for the most part, we saw just recently 92,000 black votes or registered voters got challenged by Republicans. They are trying to suppress black votes. Black people are trying to get out and vote. You don't get Raphael Warnock if black people didn't vote. That's what gave Democrats control of the Senate. So I think we certainly need to keep up the energy. And I agree with Willie Frazier that black folks, if we can get more black folks to vote, that's great. Yeah. But we also need to recognize that black folks are voting and there's other communities that we need to kind of tell, hey, you need to help us out.
Absolutely. And that was Truth is Power that made that point, Doc, on that. All right, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, I want to get your take on something else, which is this update about the student loan debate that's going to be reviewed by the Supreme Court tomorrow. We're going to hear from Dr. Jason Nichols to get his take on what we should expect. And then, of course, we'll share with you, throughout the week. We're going to give some coverage to this issue. But let's talk about what should be the expectations coming out of this monumental decision to relieve folks of student loan debt. So stay with us. That conversation is up next here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, which is
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear. Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Folks, welcome back to the show. We're continuing our conversation with our contributor, Dr. Jason Nichols, who is a lecturer from the African American Studies Department at the University of Maryland. And Doc, I want to get your take on a big case that's coming before the Supreme Court tomorrow, which is the case around student loan debt. This is the case that that many people are saying, well, some, I'm not going to say many, some folks are saying is unconstitutional, essentially illegal for President Biden and his administration to even pull off a plan to relieve millions of people of student loan debt. Now, take a look at this. This is coming out of the New York Times. Here's the word about this case, folks, that on Tuesday, tomorrow, the Supreme Court will hear arguments about President Biden's plan to eliminate up to $20,000 in federal student loan debt for most borrowers at an estimated cost of $400 billion. Mr. Biden's plan, announced in August, has been blocked by legal challenges preventing the government from canceling any debt for the 26 million borrowers who have applied for the relief. Now, the White House insists its approach, which bypassed Congress and relies on a 2003 law, the HEROES Act, that allows the education secretary to grant relief in times of national emergency, is legally sound. The actions that Mr. Biden has directed Education Secretary Miguel Cardona to take fall comfortably within the plain text of the act, the administration argued in a legal filing to the court. Now, challengers, including 6 Republican-led states, call it an abuse of executive authority that seeks, quote, breathtaking and transformative power by relying on a, quote, a tenuous and pretextual connection to an emergency, national emergency, according to their legal brief. Let me just show that this is the piece from the New York Times about the challenges for student loan debt cancellation. It goes to the Supreme Court tomorrow. I ain't no lawyer. I just played one on TV. No, I ain't no lawyer, Doc, but it sounds like the national emergency being COVID. It sounds like COVID, which is one of those situations that it wasn't like a flood or it wasn't like a natural disaster. It was a situation that affected the workplace, that affected the economy, right? We all know that. Businesses, individuals, families, all of that. And so Biden doing this during that period of time, it seems like it would fit. It seems, now again, I know that that's the burden of proof that the president's legal team is going to have to prove, say, no, this isn't a national emergency. We did it because it helps to relieve. Like, you can't talk about giving the child tax credit and all of these additional subsidies to families and to businesses, the PPP situation, and then you're talking about relieving debt, which not connected to a national emergency, when debt itself is an economic issue. I'm not understanding. The math ain't math in here, Dr. Jason Nichols. Like, what that's first and foremost, do you think that the challenges to this case, because now it's going to the Supreme Court, do you think they got something to stand on?
Unfortunately, because of the balance of the court, I think that they do. I think you're going to see them make the argument that, well, first of all, part of the argument early on by some states was that this was taking race into account, that this was going to benefit Black people disproportionately, and therefore was, wrong and unconstitutional and violates, several statutes because it's racialized. So again, I want all of the Black folks out there to recognize, number one, what Republicans are literally saying. You know what I mean? They don't want to help you. They don't want all those Black women who are among the most educated populations out there and accrue a lot of debt, in part because they go to school later too. So, we really, really should be backing the administration and what they're trying to do. I honestly think they're going to lose this challenge, even though I agree with you that it's legally sound. There's no question the HEROES Act exists. And, it's pretty much, we know that COVID was a national emergency. And it makes perfect sense. We want people to be able to buy homes. We want people to be able to start their lives. Instead, people are going to fight against this. And I think it's really, really problematic.
It's so problematic that it adds to the already, divisive partisan space that we find ourselves in, right? Now, my question to you, Doc, is for the Supreme Court to look at this case. What do you think is going to be the process for this case? I mean, you're right. This is why, the whole idea of, parties and judges is such a problem, because it takes away from the real issue, right? It takes the unbiased, it adds bias to the case. But what do you think this is going to be, the process? How long do you think this is going to be, reviewed by the Supreme Court before we actually hear something?
That's hard to say. I think that, again, you're going to get a lot of advocacy from the people on the court. We have 2 of the 3 left-leaning judges are women of color. So they certainly know. And both of them, if I'm not mistaken, come from working class backgrounds.
Right.
So they took advantage of scholarships and Pell Grants and all of that, and probably came out of school with heavy debt that took them a while to repay. There's another thing that we need to remember is that for a long time, and this is the one issue I have with the administration's approach, it should also come with some sort of reforms to the cost of college. Because there was a time up until the mid 60s, college was pretty much free. Public colleges were free or low cost. It wasn't until Ronald Reagan and a few others who were trying to raise their profile. Ronald Reagan said that the California system should charge tuition in order to keep certain people out, and we know who certain people are.
Right.
And this is during a time where you had a lot of student activism. This is the time where San Francisco State created its Black Studies program. This is the time where the Panthers were on, just about every college campus in California. They didn't want Black people at UCLA. They didn't want Black people at USC or even at Cal State, Cal State Long Beach or Northridge or any of those schools. They wanted to, maintain it the way it was. directly after the GI Bill, where you had large amounts of white folks going to school. They could go to private schools because they got a loan from the government, essentially subsidizing them. And, public colleges were free already. But now, because of that, they've made it so that people accrue ridiculous amounts of debt where they can't even start their lives. They get a good degree. They even get a good paying job, And so this argument, you make a lot of money, but if I make, 80 grand, but I've got $400,000 in debt, how am I going to start my life?
Right.
We're talking about a declining population in America. That's something that I wrote about recently, is that America's population is declining. We're getting older, we're having fewer children, and people are going to continue to have fewer children if they can't afford them.
Right.
So I think it's really important that this goes through, but I'm not optimistic. I think it's going to get shot down by people like Clarence Thomas and others who don't have any empathy for Black people and Black women and others who really need this debt relief.
Absolutely. And I think this is why McCall made the point that she made here, Doc. She says, so Republicans passed $1 trillion tax cut for the wealthy and wealthy corporations in 2017 when 45 was in office, and they were ecstatic, but they don't want student loans canceled.
Yeah, that's basically,
Yeah, that's the case. That's the case. Look, folks. Let's not start to think that there are some people who actually work in government who are against the very people that they're supposed to represent.
Yeah. So
if we start with that premise, Doc, I say it all the time. Tell Black folks, don't be surprised about a double standard because we're Black. Like, that's been happening for years. So don't be surprised. You actually do have people in government who's supposed to be representatives of the interests of the people who are against some people getting proper representation and getting their interests met. Don't be surprised. Like, it exists, folks. This is why there are two major parties. And this is why we're in the conundrum that we're in. Go ahead, Doc.
I was just going to say, this is, looking at it from a partisan aspect. Mm-hmm. Democrats do things for working and working class people, but don't communicate to them well. Republicans communicate to working and working class people really well, but don't do anything for them. Democrats need to find a way to communicate to working class people as well as get things done for them. Right. And people think that just because you went to college that you're some sort of elite. And college is where, was high school for my grandparents. You know what I'm saying? Like it's the equivalent now. Like college is not what it once was, where you pretty much were guaranteed you were going to be in the top half of the United States. That's not what college is anymore. It is literally the top of the bottom of the heap if you graduate college. And we need to treat it that way. Like that it's where other, generations were if they graduated high school.
Absolutely. So we're going to keep an eye out on this. Of course, tomorrow, this is when the case is going to be reviewed by the Supreme Court. And then, of course, later on this week, Doc, we're going to talk about this, but this has major implications, not only around the conversation about student loan, but they even have major implications about how far the government can go to do things that we've been wanting this government to do for years. And it's just so interesting that, and I'm happy that they found this 2003 HEROES Act and pulled it out of the dust and wiped it off and said, you know what, we're going to do it right now. I'm happy about that, but I know that this is going to be a very, very big issue moving forward. Dr. Jason Nichols, always a pleasure, big brother, for checking in, being with us here on Mondays here on The Culture. Thank you, bro.
Yes, sir. You already know, bro.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's check in with my brother Michael in Hotep. Let's talk about Dilbert creator Scott Adams and his racist remarks that got the cartoonist in hot water. Stay with us. That conversation is up next here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
An angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol.
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
Folks, welcome back to the show. Thank you so much for tuning in to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Folks, let's shift gears into another conversation where the Dilbert comic strip, a comic strip that is seen widely across the country and around the world. Its creator, Scott Adams, is in hot water for some racist remarks that he made on his podcast show last week, where he told white people to get the hell away from black people. Take a look at this. This is coming from NPR reporting of the story, folks. And this is very interesting, to say the least. So this is what this is the situation. The distributor of Scott Adams' Dilbert comic strip, Andrews McNeil Universal, announced yesterday it was severing ties with the cartoonist. Now, this came after Adams urged white people to get the hell away from black people during a racist rant on his online video program last week, during which he labeled black people a quote-unquote hate group. The Washington Post, the Los Angeles Times, and other newspapers across the country has already announced they would no longer carry the syndicated comic strip as a hate crime. He even went as far as to say, folks, that black people are racist. Oh, Scott Adams, you don't know what that truly means. All right, let me bring in my brother Michael Imhotep, who can be seen on Roland Martin Unfiltered. He's also the host of the African History Network podcast show, and he is a scholar and researcher. And he is looking at this, and he said, what is he saying? What say you, Brother Michael? Thank you for joining us this afternoon. When you heard about this, now, Dilbert, this is interesting. It's so funny that you brought this to my attention. So I say, let's go with it. Let's roll with it, right?
Right.
But what's interesting is that I remember listening to Scott Adams on another podcast, maybe like a couple of weeks ago, talking about why he decided to create Dilbert. Like he was in a low period of his life, and he always wanted to be a cartoonist, but he had to go in the corporate space, and then that came out of this situation. But now it's like, he said he's always, and it's interesting, he said, my views have always been considered controversial, but, I just take it with a grain of salt because I know that as a white man, I'm in this space, blah, blah, blah. Nothing racist at the time when I heard this podcast.
Right.
But then to see this, it's like, wow. Okay, you really drunk that Kool-Aid. Now, he is a vocal supporter of Donald Trump, so that's one thing for the record. Mm-hmm. He also is, he goes along with the trope with that is used by conservatives and alt-right folks. It's okay to be white. Now, the big thing that he said was, based on a Rasmussen poll, which is a conservative-leaning poll,
that's usually wrong. That usually is an outlier of polls. Rasmussen.
Left feet, bro.
Nobody that's credible cites Rasmussen. Okay. Nobody that's credible in the media cites a Rasmussen poll to then justify controversial statements. They don't do that. Okay.
What the crazy? Fox News. Fox News. I've actually heard them. Fox News Network uses Rasmussen.
Of course. Coup Plotter TV. Of course they use Rasmussen.
But they're the #1 cable network too. So
that shows you how many stupid ass people there are in America to watch Fox News. And then 74 million of them voted for the traitor-in-chief, Donald Trump. And then you just had a Fox News reporter say he wants to talk about the Dominion lawsuit against Fox News. He's been told by the higher ups of Fox News he can't talk about it. The $1.6 billion lawsuit by Dominion for all those lies Fox News, Coup Plotter TV told.
1.6
billion. Yeah, 1.6 billion. Yeah, $1.6 billion lawsuit could bankrupt Fox. I hope it does.
Hope it does too. All right, so what say you on this piece around? What was it about this story? Because this is just a story. Is this just a story of a white man that's showing his racism, or is there something else?
Well, I think it's something else because Elon Musk came out and defended him. Okay, so
wait a minute, the chief in tweet,
right? Exactly. Elon Musk, Twitter CEO, tweeted that the media previously, quote, was racist against non-white people. Now they're racist against whites and Asians. Okay, end quote. Okay, so he wants to make Asians.
Hold on, let me make sure. I want to make sure that our watchers.
It's in the. You have the article from the Associated Press.
Yes, I got it.
Okay, and then you can pull it. It's in that article. You can pull it up, page 2, and then also probably in the Washington Post article, but the one from Associated Press, yeah, it's in there. So I talked about this last night on the African History Network show. I posted the full video of Scott Adams' comments on my Instagram page and my YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, IMHOTEP. So he showed how he truly felt, and he thought there were going to be no consequences to this. Okay, but hundreds of newspapers, and looking at the reporting from CNN from Friday, February 24th, hundreds of newspapers dropped Dilbert comic strip after racist tirade from creator Scott Adams, and even more have dropped them since then. So he's facing a huge backlash. So the poll said 53% of Black Americans said it was okay to be white. 26% basically said it was not okay to be white. He cites the 26%. You have to understand what he's saying. He's citing a minority of the African-American population from a bogus poll outfit, Rasmussen, and he called African-Americans a hate group because of this faulty poll. It said 26% of Black respondents disagreed that it's okay to be white. So he goes and does a YouTube video based upon this. Then he also says that he's going to stop helping African Americans because it doesn't do any good. My question to him is, when have you had a track record of helping African Americans to any extent? Then he went on and he concluded saying that he was tired of seeing videos on social media day after day after day showing Black people beating up non-Black people. He said this also. So I'm like, where the hell, what websites are you on? What social media platforms are you on? Maybe it's 4chan. Maybe it's that. No, not World. Now I don't think he's on World Star. It may be 4chan, because 4chan is the white supremacist message board where the racist trope "it's okay to be white" started. Okay, so then we get into, well, where are you spending your time on social media? He said he's tired of seeing videos day after day after day of Black people beating up non-white people. Okay, or beating up Black people beating up white people, basically. So where are you getting these videos from? So he has dug a hole for himself, and it's good that they took action and canceled his little comic strip. Okay, he should not. Now, maybe Donald Trump will give him a platform on Truth Social, probably so. And then Elon Musk is drawing backlash from his comments as well. But we know Elon Musk is a racist also, so we pretty much figured that out. I don't think a lot of
people know that. And let me just say this: I don't think a lot of people know that, or they get too deep in it, or maybe we're in a state of denial about some things. But that's a different conversation.
I think they're learning it based upon the changes he's made to Twitter and allowing what he calls free speech, but allowing racist language to take place. And they had a huge spike in using the N-word, and different things like this, different racist language after he took over Twitter. I think a lot of people are getting a rude awakening about Elon Musk. But
let me just do this. We got a couple. Hey, Keenan, you got a little bit of this video of Scott Adams before we take our next pause. Let's play a little bit of what Scott Adams, the creator of Dilbert, had to say.
Well, Rasmussen poll had a provocative little poll today. They said, do you agree or disagree with the statement, it's okay to be white? That was an actual question. Rasmussen asked, white and Black voters, and probably others, do you disagree or agree with the statement, it's okay to be white? 26% of Blacks said no. It's not okay to be white. 21% weren't sure. Add them together, that is 47% of Black respondents were not willing to say it's okay to be white. That's like a real poll. This just happened. Did you have any idea? Would you have imagined that could have happened? So I realized, as you know, I've been identifying as Black for a while, years now, because I like to be on the winning team, and I like to help. And I always thought, well, if you help the Black community, that's sort of the biggest lever. You can find the biggest benefit. So I thought, well, that's the hardest thing and the biggest benefit. So I'd like to focus a lot of my life resources in helping Black Americans. So much so that I started identifying as Black to just be on the team I was helping. But it turns out that nearly half of that team doesn't think I'm okay to be white, which is, of course, why I identified as Black, so I could be on the winning team for a while. But I have to say, this is the first political poll that ever changed my activities. I don't know that that's ever happened before. Normally you see a poll, you just look at it and you go, whatever. Oh, this is interesting what other people think. But as of today, I'm going to re-identify as white because I don't want to be a member of a hate group. I'd accidentally joined a hate group. So if nearly half of all blacks are not okay with white people, according to this poll, not according to me, according to this poll, that's a hate group. That's a hate group. And I don't want to have anything to do with them. And I would say, based on the current way things are going, the best advice I would give to white people is to get the hell away from black people.
Yeah, he's an idiot. Now, according to this fake poll,
hold on,
53%.
Brother Michael. Hold on, Brother Michael. Hold on. I got hey, yo, crew. Wait, but hold on. No, I gotta take a pause. I gotta take a pause. I need a moment, man. I need a cup of coffee or something, man. I cannot believe what this dude just said.
Right.
This race thing is getting way out of hand, Brother Michael. It's getting way out of hand, man.
Well,
I'm serious. We got a serious problem with race. And this is what happens when you don't address racism for hundreds of years. When you just keep letting that shit just keep piling up. This is what happens. You got a grown-ass white man who says he identifies as black to be on the winning team.
Yep. So which is ridiculous in the first place.
I can't do it. All right,
right. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous in the first place. So this is
thought. I gotta take me a break.
Oh, okay. All right.
Woo! That was a little Monday surprise. Folks, stay with us. It's a lot more to talk about with this situation. I need to hear what y'all got to say, crew. I need to hear that. Just stay with me. It's The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Wow.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Pull up a chair. Take your seat. The Black Tape. With me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for a Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
We're all impacted by the culture, whether we know it or not. From politics to music and entertainment, it's a huge part of our lives, and we're going to talk about it every day right here on The Culture with me, Farajii Muhammad, only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
All right, folks, welcome back. We've been talking about Dilbert creator Scott Adams and how he's under fire for some controversial remarks that he made about black people and white people, essentially calling black people a quote-unquote hate group and telling white people to run as far or to get the hell away from black people. Now, this comes out of a video program that he has where he referenced a Rasmussen poll that shows that asks the question, is it okay to be white? Where he said that nearly half of Black people, 26% who say no, and 21% who said they don't know, nearly half of those Black people that were polled says it's not okay to be white. And in turn, by him identifying himself as a Black person, that he doesn't want to be associated or a part of any group of people that is not a winning team. Let me bring my brother back, Michael Imhotep, host of the African History Network. And look, I'm really, and you know, we can laugh and we can kind of like, what is going on? But the race question, Brother Michael, the race issue in this country, you know, when you see this, when you see racial dolezal, the race issue is gotten so bad in this country where we become delusional, that we become this other thing. Like we just.
Well, the two quick things here. Rachel Dolezal actually did civil rights work that was applauded by people in the civil rights community. Now, she pretended to be white. She pretended to be African American when she was white.
That's fine. She did the work, but she identified herself.
Right.
As a Black woman.
But she did try to look like a Black woman. He didn't try to look like a Black man. He just
white people could do civil rights work.
Right. Oh, absolutely. We
know that. But that's nothing different. But this guy, he's like,
he identified as a Black person. Now, I never heard of him doing that before. But here are a couple of things. So this is the Donald Trump effect, where some white people feel they can say whatever they want to say without repercussions and consequences. Okay,
I'm gonna be honest with you. Can I jump in real quick, Bro Mike?
Yeah,
you help me, because I need you to be my therapist right now. I need you to help me. I need you to help me to understand. Like, you could say whatever you want. I'm still at the fact that how is he able to publicly and confidently say, I identify as a Black person?
Right. Just stupid. He's stuck on stupid. Okay. And then he chooses to identify with a Black person as being Black. But then he also said that he's used his resources, things like this, to help African Americans. So now, if you have a history of using your resources to help African Americans, then you would meet a lot of them who are not against white people. For you to quote a fake poll like this, and then say you have a history of using your resources to help African Americans, that's a contradiction. Because if you actually have that track record, then you would meet a lot of African Americans who are okay with white people. They just don't like white supremacy and racism. They're against white supremacy and racism. Instead of just taking it from
a poll and then automatically saying, I am from this day forward, am now no longer going to identify as a Black person. I'm going to identify myself as a white person because I don't. Instead of just, first and foremost, bro, you don't have, where are the receipts? Where is your track record? Where is
I want to see
proof that you have been, quote unquote, in Black spaces helping Black people? Where are those receipts? Second of all, like, why do you the thinking of, and this is really what I'm getting at, because the thinking that if I join them, I'm gonna help them, like I'm an asset to them.
Well,
you're a cartoonist.
Well, it depends, you know,
workplace culture from a white man's perspective.
Right. Once again, you know, African Americans, we've always had allies of different races, different ethnicities throughout our history, whether it's the abolitionist movement during slavery, whether it's the civil rights movement, whether it's people like Viola Louisa, whether it's Reverend James Reeb, things like this, whether it's Goodman and Schwerner. even during the modern day civil rights movement, there were white allies in the modern day civil rights movement. When you look at the Black Power movement, you look at the Black Panthers working with the Brown Berets, you look at them working with radical white groups, things like this, because the Black Panther Party for self-defense, they were not against white people, they were against white supremacy and racism. So when you study our history, we've had allies. With him, I don't know what the track record is that he's citing, but the other thing is something that's important. I didn't get a chance to talk about this in the first segment. He said his advice to white people would be to get the hell away from Black people. Okay, but now partly I agree with him on that, and what I mean by that, if you're talking about some white people who are white supremacists, who want to commit hate crimes against African Americans, who want to falsely call the police on us for sleeping while Black, or we're in the library studying, mind our own business. They don't think that we're supposed to be there, or different instances where you see we're just doing our job, mind our own business, and some white people want to call the police on us. Okay, those white people need to leave us the hell alone. If you don't like us so much, leave us alone. Okay.
But haven't we been saying that though, Brother Michael?
Well, I'm saying it again.
No, I know, I hear that.
I'm saying it again on the culture with Farajii Muhammad.
No, let me tell you something. We've been saying that. We've been saying, give us our own land. Leave us alone. Let us establish our own social and political and economic infrastructure. We have been saying that. I think the part of the conversation that this dude is missing is that once we start going down the record of creating our own reality, then white people get jealous and envious that after all of these years of oppression and tyranny, that we still got the resiliency to get back and start something different. And guess what? They burn it down. They want to destroy it.
Sometimes they get jealous and want to destroy it. We rebuild it because
they don't want to see us win, as DJ Khaled said. They don't want to see us win.
Right.
And you even because we got the juice, and now next thing you know, you mad because you wonder where they get. They turn lemons into lemonade. Shit, I'm going to cut down the whole lemon tree.
So my comments were not for all white people, because all white people don't think like that. But I'm talking about the ones that want to do us harm, the white supremacists. Leave us the hell alone. And this is the paradox here.
They can't, bro. They can't.
Well, the paradox is that they can't.
So it's the hate in their heart won't allow them to.
So Saturday online, I did a Black History Month lectures in a series I was dealing with Black resistance, and Black resistance movements, because that's the annual theme for 2023 for Black History Month, Black resistance. And I talked about the Black Exodus of 1879 of 6,000 African Americans migrating from Louisiana and Texas primarily, but also Mississippi, all going out west to Kansas, because they were trying to escape the racism and domestic terrorism, especially in Louisiana and Texas. So they go out to Kansas. Now, what happened was you had white plantation owners, white landowners in Louisiana and Texas who despised African Americans, but they wanted our cheap labor. Okay. And they appealed to politicians to pass laws to keep us from leaving those states so they could keep exploiting us, but they despised us. Okay. If people go to the National Park Service, and look at they're called, they have a section called Exodusters, EXODUSTERS. They were called Exodusters. It's referred to as the Black Exodus of 1879. Okay. So this is the paradox. You hate us, but you want to exploit us. Okay. So you have that part. And so they need to leave us the hell alone, those that think like that. And then this is part of the Trump effect, where Trump has unleashed a lot of hatred in some white people to make them think they can do whatever they want to do. This is white privilege, white supremacy. They make them think they can do whatever they want to do, say whatever they want to say without any consequences. All right. And then hide behind free speech, because that's what he's saying. That's what Scott Adams is saying now. These newspapers, they're against free speech, things like that. No, free speech, there are limitations on free speech. When you put out messages that are hateful, there are limitations on that. You can't just go out and say whatever you want to say. So He messed around and found out. That's what I posted on the YouTube video, because I posted his rant, and that now he toward the end of his video, and I have it on my YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep. He said that for African Americans who are going to college and trying to better themselves, things like this, he kind of made a caveat. He wasn't really talking about that. He was talking about others. Okay, that's in the video also. But this is just stupid. But all these newspapers did the right thing to cancel him. They did the right thing. He messed around and found out.
He did. Now, I went very quickly before we take our next pause. I want to get some comments in from my crew, because folks are checking in and they've been trying to figure out what I'm trying to figure out. It's like, dude, what are you talking about? Tiana, you say, where's the Sandman when you need him? Talking about the iconic character, the Sandman from Showtime at the Apollo.
Right.
I used to love watching that show on Saturday nights. I'm telling you, the Sandman came out there. Right. Terrible. There it is. Thank you, Tiana. Rodney, checking in. You said he sounds like a fool. He sounds like a complete fool. Yes, absolute fool. Rodney, thank you. Sandra, checking in. Sandra, you say, I cannot believe what I just heard, and he thinks he makes sense. That's the problem.
Well, the reason why he thinks he makes sense, it probably is because of the people he spends his time with think the same way he does. So it's negative reinforcement of a stupid ass mentality.
Tell me, there's a group of white people out there in America who I want us to parse this a little bit. There's a group of white people in America who identify as black because they want to be on a quote unquote the winning team.
I don't know if I'm not saying they identify as black. I'm not saying they identify as black because they want to be on a winning team, but they will think the same thing from this poll from Rasmussen, and they will say, stay the hell away from black people. Okay.
You know, wait a minute. If you identify as black, if you say, I want to be a part of this community, all it takes for you is one poll, and then you say, I'm ghost, I'm gone, I'm done. It takes one poll.
But according to this fake poll, the majority of African Americans say it's okay to be white. He goes with the minority. He goes with the 53%.
He said 26 that says it's not okay, and then he said the 21. That just means that they
He said they didn't know. He said they didn't know.
Don't know.
Right. I don't know. They could be saying, I really don't understand your question. Right. It's okay to be white. Okay. They could be saying that. So he goes with the minority and makes this and then labels African Americans as a hate group. Okay, we don't have a history of enslaving over 4 million white people in this country. We don't have a history of lynching white people. We don't have a history of going and burning down white people's towns. Things like these of this nature.
We don't have a history of creating systems that keep white people systemically oppressed. We don't have a history of creating of dressing up in white sheets and terrorizing black communities for years. We don't
white
have
communities. Yeah, we don't have that history.
We don't have this history.
But see, now this goes back to our conversations dealing with Ron DeSantis down in Florida. Okay, because when you have people who are trying to pass laws to keep this type of history from actually being taught and discussed in schools, then what you're doing is you're setting up the next generation to be even more ignorant than the previous generation. Okay, of all people. And you know, closing this out with Dr. Carter G. Woodson. Dr. Carter G. Woodson, who created Negro History Week, which became Black History Month, he was a historian. He had a PhD in American history from Harvard University. He said that the history of African Americans had to be taught in every school across the country. White children needed to learn that history also because he felt that a lot of racism and prejudice was the byproduct of white people and others, but especially white people not knowing the accomplishments and achievements that African Americans have contributed to world history, not just to America, but to world history and world civilizations. Okay, what this fool just said is an example of that, and this also ties into critical race theory, because critical race theory is created in the late 1960s to study the laws and policies put in place and to look at why African Americans were not able to make as many advancements as they should have been able to make after the civil rights movement, it's because of the laws and policies that have been put in place, systemic racism. That's why critical race theory was created, to analyze that so that you can correct that also. So
right. All right, well, let me just say to Jay West, you say he at one point claiming himself as trans black. And I think we need to, and I think we need to have a whole different conversation about being trans black.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? That you can kind of come in and out of these spaces when you see fit, based upon your convenience and based upon the climate. So, Jay West, I appreciate you for putting that out there. And you're absolutely right. All I'm going to tell Scott Adams is shut up and draw.
Shut up and draw. Nobody's going to read it now.
Draw, Scott Adams.
I mean, maybe on the white supremacist social media platforms, things like this, but he's been dropped by hundreds of newspapers. They don't want to deal with
at this point, all you're going to do is, now you can't, well, you can draw all you want. Ain't nobody going to read your pieces, and right, and justifiably so they shouldn't. All right, we got to take another pause. When we come forward, hey, Brother Michael, we're going to hear it from you about what's going on with Japanese Americans showing their support and standing in solidarity with Black people in this country around reparations. Really? Boy, race is tearing everybody into a different person. We'll have that conversation. And of course, with you, stay with us as the culture here on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. For our final conversation, we're tuned in, and I'm checking in with my brother Michael and Hotep, host of the African History Network show. You can find that on YouTube and on social media. But I wanted to have a conversation that Brother Michael, once again, he brought this to my attention, and I'm glad my brother did, where he talked about Japanese Americans and how they are making it clear that because they received some form of reparations, Black Americans should too. Let me bring my brother back into the frame around this. And Brother Michael, this is very, very interesting. When I read the piece that I saw, I was like, well, it makes sense. And it will I think this will take the conversation to the next level. Let me just share with y'all, with our crew, what folks are saying. Here's it is from AP. This is what's happening now, folks. Take a look at this. From California to Washington, D.C., activists are joining revived reparation movements and pushing for formal government and compensation for the lasting harm of slavery's legacy on subsequent generations, from access to housing and education to voting rights and employment. Japanese American activists in California are studying the landmark report issued by the California's task force and plan to reach out to college students, churches, and other community groups to raise awareness about why Black reparations is needed and how it intersects with their own struggle. All right, Keenan, let's stay right there for a minute. Then we'll share the second quote in a minute. But I want to go to you, Brother Michael, on this. This is very interesting because I remember, Brother Michael, when that conversation, and make sure you're not on mute, big bro. I remember, yes. There we go. When there was a conversation about the violence that was happening, that spate of violence that was happening against Japanese Americans in certain cities like New York City and other parts of the country, Black people, I remember having this conversation on this platform where Black people were like, oh, so the government can address the violence against Japanese, and we're talking about, you know, supporting the Japanese community, but then we're not talking about what's been going on for Black people, which is understandable. But there were a lot of people feeling some type of resentment against Japanese folks for getting any type of government assistance or getting some type of policy to speak to their harm. Now, this is an interesting situation because you got Japanese Americans who are saying, look, we received reparations for what was done from our people from Pearl Harbor, from Nagasaki and Hiroshima, and all of that America has done. We stand in solidarity. How do you reconcile these 2 points, Brother Michael?
Well, number one, people have to really understand the history prior to 1988. The first hate crimes act ever signed into law in the history of this country was signed into law in 1968 by President Lyndon Baines Johnson. It was part of the Fair Housing Act, and it was a result of the modern day civil rights movement, and it was largely for African Americans. That's the first hate crimes act ever signed into the history of this country. Then when you go and study why the Department of Justice was created in 1870 by Congress during Reconstruction, the Department of Justice was created largely to enforce the new rights that African Americans were getting and to prosecute those who were violating their rights. And this is why in 1871, you had the Ku Klux Klan Act, and then you have President Ulysses S. Grant that declares martial law in 9 counties in South Carolina to crack down on the Klan, and you had Klansmen prosecuted by the Department of Justice. When we look here at what Japanese Americans got, first of all, it's important to understand which Japanese Americans got a one-time payout of $20,000, which totaled over $1.6 billion. It was approximately 82,250 Japanese Americans. It was not all Japanese Americans in the country. It went to those directly who were put into those internment camps during World War II, about 1941 and 1945 or so. And it went to those who had to be evacuated. Okay. So this past Congress, now I posted this link here from justice.gov. If you could pull that up, that explains exactly what happened. That's from the Department of Justice. 10-year program to compensate Japanese Americans interned during World War II closes its doors. So this wasn't, you can zoom in on that. This was an act of Congress. It only went to those who were survivors of the internment camps. Now, members of the Congressional Black Caucus at this time advocated for this also, this restitution. Then so this was 1988 that this bill passed. They left a 10-year window for people to make claims. In 1989, the Honorable John Conyers from Detroit introduced H.R. 40 to have a study done by the federal government on the harms of that slavery has done and the consequences of slavery, the legacy of slavery to African Americans. So that was the year after this. Now the problem is based upon Title VI of the 1964 Civil Rights Act, Section 601, non-discrimination and federally assisted programs. Race-based programs are illegal at the federal level. You also have a similar law in California, which is why the California Reparations Task Force is prescribing their reparations based upon lineage, as opposed to just race, just being Black. Okay, right. So they can get around that and withstand court challenges, because whatever they pass will be challenged in court. You have to be able to withstand court challenges. That's all you have to understand law. Now, the problem with us is that all of the last of the former slaves died in the 1950s. So our situation is different than Japanese Americans, because that restitution only went to those who were directly harmed. For us, all the last of the former slaves died in the 1950s. So this is why you're going to have to approach it differently. And what will be what California is doing is probably what will be adopted at the federal level. If something is adopted, you have to do it by lineage. But the most important thing that we have to understand is that this is not about a check. This is about comprehensive reparations. And if you read the 500-page study, that the California Reparations Task Force released in June of 2022. And I'm posting here in the chat the article from the Washington Post that breaks this down, and it has the link to the 500 study, because I've gone through it and read part of it. We have to have comprehensive reparations. So the laws and policies that have been put in place and still remain in place that have maldistributed wealth, power, and resources into the hands of Europeans, you have to change those laws and policies. Yep. This is why you have to understand the history of what's happened, because if we all got $1 million a day, you and I both know white people will have it all back by this time next week. And the only thing you would have done is stimulated their economy, but the laws and policies that maldistributed wealth, power, and resources into their hands in the first place will still be there. Okay.
Let me throw this out there as well, Brother Michael. And I'm glad that you're bringing these points up. One of the things that was said was referenced is this Pew Research Center poll that was done about the issue.
Right.
Take a look at this, folks. Only 30% of U.S. adults surveyed by the Pew Research Center in 2021. And Keenan, let's pull this second quote up for me, please. Thank you, bro. Only 30% of U.S. adults surveyed by the Pew Research Center in 2021 supported reparations for slavery. That was in 2021. That's 2 years ago. 77% of whom were Black Americans. Wow. That was 2 years ago, folks. Support among Latinos and Asians were 39% and 33% respectively, and white Americans had the lowest rate of support at 18%. Now, some advocates said that the idea of reparations for the World War II incarceration camps was once considered outlandish. But many, take this look, I want y'all to listen to this, y'all.
Right.
Many young third-generation Japanese Americans were inspired to mobilize from civil rights and ethnic pride movements, including the Black Panther Party and the Brown Berets, who promoted Chicano rights. Look, folks, look at this. Take a listen, folks. Let me just say this, and Brother Michael, we only got a couple of moments left.
Okay.
But I wanted to, I'm bringing this up because if we understood that the struggle of Black people in this country serves as the metric, the standard, the very reference point on what human rights look like in this country, right? We open the door. Our struggle opens the door for other salvation.
Right.
And so for the fact that you got third generation Japanese Americans, young Japanese who are learning about the Black Power movement, the Civil Rights movement, they're learning about all of these movements of Black liberation that are saying, look, this is similar to what we experience. This is eye-opening on so many levels. And this is why Chris, my guy, Chris Big checked in. He said something, and I'm a true, and I'm in total agreement with him. Chris, you made the point. You said the benefits, let me just make sure. Let me make sure I'm pulling this up. You said, Chris, that in order for movements to be successful, that they must be diverse. And for a situation like this, for Japanese people, some Japanese, of course, not across the board, but some Japanese Americans saying, we want to support this. I think, Brother Michael, this pushes the priority up a few notches to get people to understand. Now, if you got Japanese that are signing on, imagine what would happen if Latinos signed on.
Right. Well, yeah. So this is why it's important to understand history and why the history of this country and the history of African Americans has to be taught in all schools across the country. It has to be taught to everybody, because those third generation Japanese are studying history, studying the Black Power movement, also studying the Civil Rights movement. Asian women like Grace Lee Boggs, things like this, who was an ally to the Civil Rights movement. Now, I just posted the link here to an article. If you can just pull this up for a quick second. This deals with how you tie all this together. Racism has cost the U.S. $16 trillion. This was a study by Citigroup Bank. And it laid out three critical areas. And it said they looked at just from a 20-year period of time, from the year 2000 to like 2019. And they said the U.S. economy had lost $16 trillion because of racism. And they said black workers have lost $113 billion in potential wages over the past 2 decades because they could not get a college degree. The housing market lost $218 billion in sales because Black applicants could not get home loans, and about $13 trillion in business revenue never flowed into the U.S. economy because African-American entrepreneurs could not get access to bank loans. It goes on to say that the U.S. could have $5 trillion in gross domestic product over the next 5 years if those gaps and others were closed today, the study indicated. So that deals with changing laws and policies. But what this study documents, and there are other studies like it, it shows how racism negatively impacts everybody in this country. It's lost opportunity for everybody, even though we get the brunt of it. So it requires a re-education process and really teaching this history. That's why Juneteenth becoming a federal holiday could be very powerful if we know how to use it, because it allows us to force into the national conversation a history that Republicans are passing laws and state legislators to keep that history from being taught in the schools. So it requires a total re-education process and show how all this is hurting everybody, and policies that are good for African Americans are good for America in general.
Come on, there it is right there. Look, we're going to end it right there. Hey, Brother Michael, I'm so happy that you brought this topic. I'm serious, brother. I didn't see this, so yeah. I'm glad that you were like, "Hey, Farajii, we need to talk about this." I
monitor about 35 different news sources on a daily basis.
Hey, bro, and I'm always consuming. But this is great. This is great, man. And I think it's going to push the movement. I think it's going to push the conversation further along. I think it's going to, and it's a huge. This uproots white supremacy on so many levels, brother Michael. You know it, and I know it. You're starting to see Japanese. You got, of course, Black folk. If we start to see more groups of people standing behind Black folks and saying, yeah, their struggle is our struggle. Oh,
right.
Oh, right. Brother.
Exactly.
Like it's the sky's the limit. Look, we got a couple of seconds left. Talk to us about the work you're doing.
Okay, visit our website, theafricanhistorynetwork.com. We had 2 new 12-week online courses that just started up this past weekend, the weekend before. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'af for understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school, on Saturday, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then on Sunday, Black resistance movements, Haitian Revolution, the U.S. Civil War, the Civil Rights Movement, and Black Power Movement, 1800 to 1968. So register for both of those classes. We do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded. You can go back and watch it anytime. Even after the course is over with, you'll still have full access. You can watch it. And this information is PG-13. You can use this with your children as well. Register at our website, theafricanhistorynetwork.com.
There it is, Brother Michael and Hotep. You can see him on Mondays here on The Culture. You can also check him out on Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Yeah, on Fridays.
And so we're so happy he's able to spend some of his time and most importantly, his brilliance with us. Thank you, Brother Michael.
Oh, thank you, brother. Thank you, Farajii. Peace.
Peace, brother. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us. I thank each and every one of you for tuning in. I want to thank my crew, Joel Keenan. I want to thank my control room. And, of course, I want to thank you, my culture crew, for always being a part of the conversation. Look, folks, make sure you do your due justice and your due diligence. Support us here at blackstarnetwork.com. Make sure that if you have enjoyed the conversations we've had today over the past few days, over the past couple of months, make sure that you do your part and support us financially, sharing the content, and so much more. Go to blackstarnetwork.com and do all that you can to support Black-owned digital media as we're continuing to grow and expand and evolve, and most importantly, continue to push the boundaries around culturally relevant conversation. Black Star Network. Also follow us on Twitter at Black Star Network and IG at Black Star Network as well. And, of course, follow me at The Real Farajii on IG and Farajii on Twitter. Would love to connect with you as well. All right, that's going to do it for me. Stay tuned. Up next is RMU, Roland Martin Unfiltered. As always, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong. Stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. God willing, we'll talk tomorrow for another exciting edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Have a great afternoon and evening. Peace.